Mara Whitlock's father had been in the ground just 6 weeks when the foreclosure notice arrived. With her sister Elena crying in the kitchen and the ranch dying around them, two strangers showed up at her door holding marriage contracts. They promised salvation, but Mara knew you cannot save people from the secrets they carry. If you believe an underdog deserves to win, hit that like button and stay with us to see how this story ends. That November, the wind had a bite to it. Mara stood watching the sun set over 2,000 acres of debt that used to be her family's dream. The ranch house behind her looked tired, its paint peeling like a bad sunburn. Inside, her sister was trying to make soup from a bone they had already boiled twice. Mara gripped the fence, the rough wood digging into her palms. She did not even wear gloves anymore. What was the point? "Mara, come quick!" Elena's voice cut through the wind. She stood in the doorway, her face flushed. "There are two riders coming." Mara's stomach sank. It had to be the bank. They had sent 3 letters, each one colder than the last. She had burned every one of them, a useless act of defiance. "Go inside," Mara told her sister, her voice flat. "Please," she added, softer this time. Her sister listened, but Mara could feel Elena's eyes on her as she walked out to meet the men. As they got closer, she realized they were not bankers. These men were strangers. One sat on his horse tall and straight. The other had an easy slouch. They did not look like they belonged here. The tall, dark-haired man spoke first. "Are you Miss Mara Whitlock?" His voice was low and cautious. "Who is asking?" she replied. "My name is Graham Hale, and this is Lucas Reed," he said, nodding to his partner. Lucas tipped his hat. "We came about the arrangement. We received your letter." Mara's mind went blank for a second. The letter, oh no. Elena had written it right after their father passed. It was an advertisement sent to a matrimonial agency looking for husbands willing to work the ranch. Mara thought she had hidden it, that she had won that argument. Apparently not. "I'm afraid that letter was sent by mistake," Mara said, her cheeks burning. "Well, it was received about 3 weeks back," Lucas said, his voice carrying a warm Texas drawl. "Took us a while to get here." "Then you have wasted your time," Mara said, her tone final. "We are not interested." "Mara!" Elena cried from the porch. "Go inside, Elena," Mara ordered. But her sister stood her ground. "No, please, just let them water their horses. Give them 1 hour to rest." It was the utter defeat in Elena's voice that broke Mara. She looked at her younger sister and saw how thin she had become, how dark the circles were under her eyes. "1 hour," Mara said, her voice tight. "Then you ride out." The inside of the house was a testament to their poverty. Graham took it all in at a glance, the empty spaces on the walls where paintings used to hang, and the smell of wood smoke and thin soup. Elena offered coffee with a brightness that felt forced. "Never mind that," Mara said, cutting her off. "Say what you came to say." Graham looked at Lucas, then began. The letter offered a partnership in the ranch, and eventually marriage, in exchange for labor and investment. "We do not have any money," Mara stated plainly. "We were not expecting money, ma'am," Lucas said gently. "The letter said you had land that needed good hands. We are just looking for a place to put down roots." Mara stared at him, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. "Why?" she asked, her voice sharp. "Why would 2 strong men travel halfway across the country for a failing ranch and 2 women they have never met? What are you running from?" The question hit the air and hung there. Graham stood rigid, and Lucas's easy smile vanished. "Everyone is running from something," Lucas said, but his voice was strained. "That is not an answer," Mara shot back. Elena jumped in, her voice rising with frustration. "They want what Papa wanted, a chance to build something. Why is that so hard for you to believe?" "Because," Mara said, her voice low and dangerous, her eyes locked on the 2 men. "Men do not travel 1,000 miles to marry strangers unless they cannot go home." Graham did not try to deny it. "You're right," he said quietly. "Going home just is not an option for me." He had made choices a long time ago that he could not unmake. As Mara stared, her sister Elena set down coffee cups with a rattle. "Does it matter?" she asked in a small voice. "If they can work, does their past really matter?" Mara's face softened just a little. "It matters if their past follows them here." Lucas spoke up then, his usual charm gone. "Everyone's got a past, Miss Whitlock. The question is, are you willing to let folks have a future? Mara was silent for a long moment. I need to think, she said finally. Elena, show them to the bunkhouse. They can stay one night. The bunkhouse was in worse shape than the main house. 4 bunks with rotten mattresses lined the walls, and a cold stove sat in the corner. It is not much, Elena said, her voice full of apology. We had to let the hands go. It has just been us since Papa died. Lucas asked gently how he passed. A horse threw him, she explained. By the time Mara found him, the cold had taken him. He was 62 years old. The story hung heavy in the dusty air. I'm sorry, Graham said. Elena nodded, fighting back tears. The bank gave us 60 days to pay up. That was 5 weeks ago. We are out of time. She looked at them, her eyes pleading. Mara will not admit it, but we need real help. Graham asked her, your sister said the advertisement you sent was a mistake. Did you send it without her knowing? Elena's face flushed with color. I did. I knew she would say no. She says no to everything that feels like giving up. Elena lifted her chin, her voice gaining strength. I knew she would work herself into the ground before she admitted, we cannot do this by ourselves. So yes, I sent the letter. Someone had to do something. After she returned to the house, Graham and Lucas got to work. They hauled fresh straw for mattresses and fixed the old stovepipe. As they swept away months of dust, Lucas leaned on his broom. This is worse than I figured, Graham. The fences are down and the barn roof is soft. This whole place is held together with pure stubbornness. We can fix it, Graham said. Can we? Lucas asked, his voice low. This is months of work, maybe years, and that is assuming the bank gives them more time. And assuming we stay, Graham finished, which is the whole point. They need help. We need a place. Lucas fell silent. Graham knew he was thinking about the letters that always found him, the ones he would read once and then burn. I am tired of running, Graham said. Are you not? Instead of answering, Lucas just swept harder. Graham went outside to get the lay of the land. Mara watched the stranger, Graham Hale, walk her land in the dark. He moved with a purpose that made her uneasy, like a soldier casing a battlefield. A soft knock came at her door. It was her sister, Elena. I know you are angry with me, Elena said quietly, stepping into the room. You went behind my back, Mara stated, her voice tight. You invited 2 strange men running from their past into our home. They are men who are willing to help us, Elena insisted. Mara, what other choice did we have? Mara felt a wave of exhaustion. I do not know, but it should not have been this. Marrying strangers cannot be the only way. Elena's voice was firm. Then let them earn our trust. Give them 1 week. If you still want them gone after that, I will help you send them on their way. Mara looked at the steel in her younger sister's eyes. 1 week? She agreed. But they sleep in the bunkhouse. And if I see one thing I do not like, they are gone before morning. They will be barred, Elena promised before leaving Mara alone with her doubts. Outside, Graham stood at the fence, looking like a man expecting a fight to come out of the shadows. What are you running from? Mara whispered to the glass. Dawn arrived cold and sharp. Graham woke to the sound of an axe splitting wood. Outside, he found Mara at the woodpile, her breath making clouds in the freezing air. She wore men's work clothes and swung the heavy axe with an expert's skill. She saw him watching but did not stop. There is coffee in the house. I can do that, Graham offered, nodding toward the wood. I am sure you can, she said, finally sinking the axe into the chopping block. My sister says I am supposed to give you a week. I think it is foolish, but I trust her gut. She held the axe out to him. You and your friend will do morning chores. After breakfast, you will fix the fence in the east pasture. We will see about the rest later. Graham took the axe. Understand this, Mr. Hale. I need a hand to save this ranch, not a husband. I have no interest in a wife who does not want me, Graham replied evenly. For the first time, a small smile touched Mara's lips. Elena said you were different. Do not prove her wrong. She walked back to the house, leaving him with the axe as the sky turned to gold. Lucas soon joined him, stretching. She makes you work for it, does she not? Would you have any respect for her if she did not? Graham asked. They worked all morning, feeding the cattle and mucking out the barn. Elena brought them coffee, her smile a small patch of warmth in the cold day. Mara is watching, she told them quietly. She is impressed that you showed up and you stayed. Later, they went to the east pasture. The fence was not just down, it was destroyed. Posts were snapped clean off and wire was tangled everywhere. You think a bear did this? Lucas asked. Does not matter, Graham said, grabbing a shovel. We have to rebuild it. The work was brutal. Their hands grew raw and their backs ached. By sunset, they had rebuilt most of the section, completely exhausted. As they walked back in the dim light, Graham saw Mara standing on the porch, just watching them. Mara watched from the porch as they finished a new line of fence the next evening. You will be done tomorrow? She asked. Yes, ma'am, Graham answered. She nodded and turned to leave, but paused at the door. Supper is in an hour. You are welcome to join us in the house. It was just an invitation to a meal, but it felt like a door cracking open. We would be honored, Graham said. That night, they ate warm stew at the main table. The talk was careful, but it was a start. Lying in his bunk later, Graham felt a sliver of hope. It was a fragile thing, but it was a start. They had called him a coward, a traitor, all because he refused an order to lead his men into a slaughter. The army stripped him of his rank and his honor, sending him west with nothing but shame. Now Graham stood on a struggling ranch, a place on the very edge of the world. He was a broken man trying to fix a broken fence. But for the first time in a long time, it felt right. Here, with two women who desperately needed help, he saw a chance to build something new. Tomorrow he would finish this fence. Tomorrow he would prove he was more than the man the army said he was. By noon the next day, the fence was done. It stood strong and straight across the pasture. Lucas, the other hand, gave a nod of approval. He said, Well, we did some fine work. Just then, Mara's voice came from behind them. She had ridden up on her mare so quietly they never heard her coming. You've done good work, she said, her eyes showing a hint of respect. Graham felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the sun. He told her, It should hold through the winter just fine. Mara swung down from her horse and walked the fence line, testing the posts and wires like an expert. Finally, she looked at them and said, My father always said you can judge a man by his work. She paused, her hand on a new post. You built this fence like you plan on being here to see it stand. It matters, Graham said plainly. Mara asked, Does it? Or are you just trying to earn your keep? The question was fair, not mean. A little of both, I reckon, Graham admitted, but mostly I am tired of building things that do not last. Something in Mara's face softened. She seemed to understand. Elena is making lunch, she said. Come on inside. As they walked toward the house, Lucas pointed at the barn. Miss Whitlock, that barn roof is sagging a bit. Might be worth a look before the snow comes. Mara's jaw tightened. Add it to the list, she said, her voice flat with worry. Right now, I am more concerned about the well. The water pressure has been dropping. She did not need to say more. A ranch without water is just a patch of dirt with a death sentence. At the kitchen table, they ate bread and fresh venison. Elena tried to keep the conversation light. When lunch was over, Graham stood up. I should go check that well, he said. I will come with you, Mara replied instantly. She turned to Elena. Can you show Lucas the barn? Outside, Graham and Mara walked toward the well house. The afternoon sun offered little warmth against the cold. You do not have to fix everything at once, Mara said softly. I know this place is falling apart. What are you expecting from us? Graham asked. She kicked at a stone. Honestly, I do not know anymore. I used to think I would run this ranch with my father forever, but expectations are a luxury. Now I just try to get through the day. They reached the small wooden well house. When Graham opened the door, the smell of damp earth and rust hit him hard. The old pump groaned and shook with every pull. Graham could tell just by the sound that its seals were cracked and it had been neglected for years. Mara stood in the doorway, wrapping her arms around herself against the chill. Reckon you can fix it? He gave a slow nod. I can sure try, but I will have to tear it down completely to see what is worth saving. He paused, then looked her straight in the eye. Mara, can I ask you something? How bad is it, really? She let out a long, tired breath, the fight seeming to go out of her for just a second. $3,000. That is what we owe the bank. And they gave us 3 weeks to pay it. The number landed like a punch in the gut. For a small ranch like this, $3,000 might as well have been $3 million. My daddy bet the whole ranch on new cattle about 5 years back, she said, her voice flat, staring out at the brown fields. He said it was an investment. Then a sickness came through and took half the herd. We have been losing ground ever since. She finally turned back to him. But I am not alone anymore. Her gaze was intense. For better or for worse, you and Lucas are here now, running from whatever it is you both are running from. He almost told her everything right then and there. He nearly pulled out the papers that explained it all, but the moment passed and the words just would not come. Instead, he just said, "Everybody deserves a fresh start." Do they? She asked quietly. Or do we just carry our mistakes with us? Across the property, Lucas climbed down a ladder in the dusty barn, brushing cobwebs from his jeans. "This is bad, Elena," he called down. "Real bad. One heavy snow, and this whole roof is coming down." He could see her shoulders slump. "Just more money we do not have," she whispered. She ran a hand along the rail of an empty horse stall. "This place used to be so alive, full of animals and noise. My father loved it." Her hand dropped to her side. "But now it is just an empty building, waiting to fall." Lucas walked over, his boots loud on the wooden floor. "It does not have to stay that way." "Doesn't it?" she replied, turning to face him, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "My sister Mara, she thinks I am a foolish dreamer," Elena said with a sad little smile. "Maybe bringing you and Graham here was just another one of my foolish dreams. Or maybe," Lucas said softly, stepping a little closer, "it was the smartest thing you could have done. We are here to try, Elena. That is better than facing it alone." "But why?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper as her eyes searched his. "Why would you help complete strangers?" He wanted to give her a real answer, to tell her the truth. But all he could manage was, "I guess we all need a place to land sometimes." He saw the disappointment in her face and knew it was not the answer she deserved. Graham was elbow-deep in greasy palm parts when Lucas walked up, looking defeated. "How is it looking?" Lucas asked. "It is terrible," Graham said, with a grim smile. "But it is fixable. I will need to get some parts from town, though." "I will go with you," Lucas said, his voice heavy. He sank down on the edge of the well house. "That girl, Elena. She asked me why we are really here. I gave her the same old vague story, and I am tired of it." He pulled a crumpled letter from his pocket and held it out. "I am tired of running, Graham." Graham wiped the grease from his hands with a rag and carefully unfolded the letter his friend had given him. Graham finally broke the silence. "Your brother is getting married in 6 weeks." He paused. "He expects you to be there." Lucas looked at the letter, at the familiar handwriting. "He says the family is asking about me," Lucas said, his voice flat. "That it is time to come home and face my responsibilities." Graham waited. "The family business, the land, everything I was supposed to inherit, everything I ran from." Lucas let out a bitter laugh. "Are you going to go?" Graham asked. "If I go, I cannot come back here. My brother made that clear. Come home for good, or do not come at all." Lucas looked at his friend. "So how do I explain to Elena that I am hiding from people who love me? How does that sound like anything but being a coward?" "It is not cowardly to want your own life," Graham said. "But my father is sick, Graham, and I am 1,000 miles away, pretending I can just walk away." "You came here to save yourself, Lucas," Graham said firmly. "There is no shame in that." Just then, Mara's voice cut through the air. "Mr. Hale! Mr. Reed!" They turned to see her running from the house, her face pale. Elena was right behind her, looking just as scared. Lucas felt his stomach clench. "What is wrong?" Graham asked. "A writer from town," Mara panted. "The bank. They moved up the deadline. We do not have 3 weeks. We have 1. 1 week." The words hit like a punch. "They cannot just do that," Lucas said. "They can." Mara's voice trembled. "A buyer made an offer on the land. They are giving us 7 days to match it, or we have to leave." "How much is the offer?" Graham asked. $4,000, Mara said. 1,000 more than we owe." Elena was openly crying now. "It is over. After everything we did to keep this place, it is just over." The despair in her voice was a knife in Lucas's gut. He had only been there 3 days, 3 days of careful work and fragile hope. Now it was all gone. Mara's face was a mask of defeat. "We have no money, no time. We are done." She walked back to the house like a woman in a trance. Elena paused, her eyes meeting Lucas's. "I am sorry," she whispered. "I brought you here for nothing." Then she followed her sister, leaving Lucas and Graham standing alone by the well. "We have to do something," Lucas said, his voice tight. "We cannot just let this happen." "But what?" Graham asked. "We do not have $4,000. A terrible, desperate idea started to form in Lucas's mind. "The family money," he said. "My brother's letter mentioned my trust fund, the money my grandfather left me." The words spilled out of him now. "I have never touched it because using it meant giving in to them. But it is enough." "Lucas, that money is for your future," Graham warned. "This is my future." Lucas gestured toward the ranch. "This place, these people, this chance to be someone else. If I use that money, my family will know where I am." "Let them," Lucas said, already walking toward the bunkhouse. "I will send a telegram." Graham stopped him. "Once you do this, there is no going back. Your brother said it himself. This is final." Lucas met his friend's gaze. "Then it is final. I would rather have this life than the one I was born into." Graham studied him for a moment, then gave a slow nod. "All right, but let us be smart. We need to find out who this buyer is." They found the sisters in the kitchen, sitting in silence. "We are not giving up," Graham announced. "We have a plan. We think we can get the money." Elena looked up, a flicker of hope in her eyes. "How?" "It is complicated," Lucas said gently. "First, who is this buyer? What do they want with this land?" "The writer did not say," Mara replied. "Paying more than you owe is suspicious," Graham said. "Either there is something valuable here, or they just want you gone." "Like who?" Mara asked. "The Crawfords to the east have wanted to buy," she mused. "And a mining company wanted access rights across our land last year, but Papa refused them." "A mining company," Lucas repeated. "That could be it?" "Even if it is, what can we do?" Elena asked, her voice small. "We still cannot match $4,000. "We can," Lucas said, taking a deep breath. "I have access to family money. It is enough to cover everything." Mara stared at him, her eyes narrowed with suspicion. "You have $4,000, but you are working here as a mail-order husband? Why would you give us that kind of money? What do you want in return?" "Nothing you are not already offering," Lucas said simply. "A place to stay, work that matters, a chance to be part of something real." "That is not an answer," Mara stated, her voice like flint. Lucas met her hard gaze. "It is the only one I have right now. I know you do not trust me, Mara, but I am offering to help. Let me send a telegram and get the money to save Red Hollow." "And be in debt to you instead?" she shot back. "No debt," he promised. "A partnership. But first you tell us the truth. All of it." Lucas finally broke his silence. He explained that his family owned 4 textile mills back east. He was raised to take over the business, but he despised a life built on the labor of others. So he walked away from the fortune and the future they had planned for him. "And you came west," Elena whispered. Lucas nodded, admitting he had worked on ranches and in logging camps, just trying to find his own way. But his family refused to let him go. The letters always found him, pleading for him to accept his responsibilities. "Then why not go back?" Mara asked, her curiosity replacing her anger. "Because it is not my life," Lucas said firmly. "Using their money for myself would be surrender. But using it to help you, to fight for this ranch, that is my choice." The room was quiet, filled only with the weight of his confession. "You would destroy your family ties for a ranch you have known for 3 days?" Mara asked in disbelief. "Yes," Lucas said simply. "I am." Elena let out a small, surprised laugh that broke the tension. "Fine," Mara conceded. "Send your telegram." A sense of purpose filled the air as they all agreed on their tasks. That night, Lucas wrote the message that would burn his last bridge home. He asked Graham, "How do you choose strangers over your own family?" "You do not," Graham answered quietly. "You just make the choice and you live with it." Before bed, Mara stopped by Elena's room. "Do you trust them?" she asked. "I think I want to," Elena replied honestly. "That is a start," Mara said, a faint smile on her lips. "You were right to bring them here." For the first time in weeks, Elena felt a surge of hope instead of tears. By the cold light of dawn, Lucas was already gone. He had left a note for Graham, explaining he had ridden to town early to send the wire before he could change his mind. They had 7 days. They had to make it enough. Graham had heard Lucas leave around 4 in the morning and knew this was a journey his friend had to make alone. Mara stepped out of the house, her eyes immediately searching the yard. "Where is Lucas?" she asked. "He went to town to send the telegram," Graham explained. Mara nodded slowly. "Once that money is in motion, his family will know where to find him. They will come looking." Graham's expression hardened. Families have ways of applying pressure that have nothing to do with the law. Mara studied him with her piercing gaze. "You sound like you know that from experience, Mr. Hale. What is in that document you look at every night?" Graham felt a flush of heat despite the cold air. "Military discharge papers," he said, his voice sharp. "Dishonorable." He braced himself for her judgment. Instead, she just asked, "What were the orders?" He was taken aback. No one ever asked that. "There was a settlement," he began, the memory still bitter. "Mostly women and children. My commanding officer ordered us to go in hard and make an example of them." "They called it cowardice," Graham said, his voice quiet but steady as he spoke to Mara later that day. "I called it refusing to send good men to their deaths just so some politician could get a good picture. So they kicked me out, gave me a dishonorable discharge." He finally met her eyes. "Some things are worth more than a career. I would make the same choice again tomorrow." A change came over Mara's face, a kind of deep respect that softened her hard edges. "My daddy would have liked you," she said softly. "He always said real character is not what you do when things are easy. It is what you do when every choice is hard." She took a deep breath. "Come on, Elena is making breakfast, and we have 6 days to figure out how to save this ranch," model. In the kitchen, the smell of bacon and coffee filled the air. Elena set plates on the table, but her eyes kept glancing toward the window. She was watching for Lucas, who had ridden into town. "He will be all right," Graham said gently. "He is probably just asking around about the folks trying to buy this place." "Or he is having second thoughts," Elena whispered, "realizing he is giving up everything for a lost cause." "Elena," Mara's voice was sharp, "do not." "Do not what?" Elena shot back. "Do not face the truth. He barely knows us." "Then he comes back and tells us so," Graham said calmly. "But I know Lucas. He is a man of his word. He will send that telegram for us." "You cannot be sure of that," Elena said. "No," Graham agreed, "but I choose to believe in him. Sometimes that is all you can do. You trust someone until they give you a reason not to." Just then, the sound of horse hooves outside made them all jump to their feet. Lucas stood in the doorway, his face red from the wind. Lucas walked in looking tired but triumphant. The telegram was sent, and the money was on its way. The clerk figured it would take about 3, maybe 4 days. That meant they might just save the ranch by Friday. You could feel the relief wash over the room. Elena leaned on the counter, her hand over her heart, while Mara shut her eyes for a moment in a silent prayer of thanks. Graham asked, "Any trouble?" "Not a bit," Lucas said, slumping into a chair. "Clerk was all business, but I did hear something mighty interesting in town." Mara's head snapped up. "About the buyer?" "Even better," Lucas said, taking a sip of coffee. "About who's really pulling the strings." He explained that a big Denver company, Territorial Holdings, had been quietly buying up small ranches all over the valley, and the man in charge was none other than Marcus Crawford. Mara's face lost all its color. "Robert Crawford's boy," Graham said, putting it all together. "The same one who's been pestering you to sell." "Pestering is a gentle word for it," Mara said, her voice tight with anger. "Papa told me Marcus had been sniffing around for years, but I never knew he was big enough to buy the whole valley." Elena looked confused. "But why? What's out here that's worth so much trouble?" "The water," Mara said, the answer hitting her like a lightning strike. "Our river feeds half this valley. If you control our ranch, Red Hollow, you control the water for everyone downstream." Graham nodded. "And with things getting drier, water is becoming more valuable than gold." Mara's eyes narrowed as she worked it out. "So Marcus is using the bank to squeeze us. He knows we're in debt. He puts pressure on them to call in our loan, then swoops in with an offer. Once he has our land and our water, he has power over everyone." "It is a ruthless plan," Lucas admitted, "but it is smart." "Not if we stop him," Mara declared, her voice as hard as Texas iron. He cannot take what we are not willing to sell. What if he just keeps raising his price until we are broke? Mara asked. Maybe, Lucas said, but buying this time lets us get our ducks in a row, even get a lawyer if we have to. Mara looked at him, her expression softening. Thank you for this, for picking us. It is not just about you, Lucas admitted. For the first time, I am using that money for something I actually want. Still, it is a gift we can never repay, Elena said quietly. Lucas shook his head. I do not want repayment. I want a home. I want to build something real. Graham cleared his throat. So, the money arrives Friday. We pay the bank, then tell Marcus Crawford to go pound sand. Eloquently put, Mara said with a faint smile. For now, we work hard and watch our backs. A man like Crawford will not like us standing in his way. You think he would do something? Elena asked, her voice tight with worry. Mara's jaw set. Desperate men do desperate things. But he is not just fighting one ranch anymore. He is fighting all of us. The next 3 days were a blur of hard work. Graham fixed the well pump while Lucas helped him shore up the barn roof. They fell into an easy rhythm, a friendship built on shared sweat. Inside, Mara and Elena sorted through their father's records. On the third night, a letter arrived for Lucas. Graham watched his friend's face shift in the lamplight, from surprise to guilt, then to a quiet anger. Let me guess, Graham said. Your family. My father, Lucas answered, his voice hollow. He knows I took the money from the trust. My brother says he is getting worse, and they want me to come home, before he dies. Lucas rubbed his face with his hands. My brother said I will regret it for the rest of my life if I do not come home now. That family is family, no matter what. Graham was quiet. He did not understand the pull of blood ties that seemed to chain his friend. What are you going to do? I should go. I know it. But if I leave before the money is here, before this place is safe, what if I am just trading one regret for another? Lucas looked up, his eyes full of pain. What if I go, he dies anyway, and I have abandoned the one good thing I chose for myself? There is no right answer, Graham said softly. No, there is not. Lucas folded the letter. But I am staying until Friday, until I know this ranch is safe. Then I will figure it out. Please, Graham, do not tell me I am making a mistake. I am already telling myself that. Just let me make this choice. Graham nodded, respecting his friend's decision. After a long silence, Lucas spoke again. Elena asked me if I believe in fate. I told her I think we make our own fate by what we choose to fight for. She said that was mighty philosophical for a man like me. She has a point. Lucas looked at the letter, then back at Graham. I am falling for her. And now I have to choose between her and my dying father. There is no way to win. Then do not choose yet, Graham said. Just get through today. Surviving until tomorrow was a piece of advice Graham knew all too well. It was a simple truth that had carried him through his darkest days. Friday finally came, and with it, a heavy sense of dread. Mara and Lucas rode out at dawn, leaving Graham and Elena to wait. Every hour that passed felt like a lifetime. When they finally spotted the riders returning, they rushed out. One look at Mara's face said it all. She swung down from her horse. The money came through, she said, her voice steady. Every last cent. We paid the bank and told them Red Hollow was staying right where it is. A wave of pure joy washed over Elena, and she threw her arms around Lucas. Graham felt a knot in his chest finally come undone. What about Marcus Crawford? Graham asked. Lucas grinned. The bank told him his offer was no longer needed. Apparently, he was waiting right there to sign the papers. He was not happy. He made it clear this fight was far from over. Mara's eyes were like steel. But the law's on our side now. This ranch is ours, free and clear. For now, anyway, Graham added quietly. Mara looked out at the land that was finally theirs again. We will face whatever comes, she said. But tonight we are going to breathe. They stood together as the sun went down. A week ago they were strangers. Now they were partners who had fought and won together. That evening felt like a dream. They shared a real celebration dinner, with chicken, vegetables, and even a pie. They talked about the future with a feeling that was dangerously close to hope. We need to hire more hands, Mara announced. This place is too much for just the four of us. Lucas nodded. I know a few good men who are looking for honest work. I can send out some letters. Do it, Mara said. We will need at least 3 more people before spring. Graham, that barn roof needs to be your priority. Elena and I will handle the house. She looked at each of them, a small smile on her face. We are really doing this. We are going to make it work. We are going to try, Graham corrected softly. That is all anyone can ever do. Later that night, in the quiet of the bunkhouse, Lucas stared up at the ceiling. A letter from his brother felt heavy in his pocket. He knew he should write back and explain why he had chosen to stay here. Graham's voice cut through the darkness. You should go see him, your father, before it is too late. The ranch is safe now. You can take a few weeks, go home, and make your peace. What if they convince me not to come back? Lucas asked. Then that is your choice to make, Graham said. But at least you will have made it. Besides, Elena would want you to go. She would never ask you to choose her over your dying father. Lucas knew Graham was right. Leaving Red Hollow felt like tempting fate, but some debts have to be paid. I will think about it, he said. The real trouble arrived 3 days later. Graham was on the barn roof when he saw them. 6 riders moving fast, led by a man who looked like he owned the whole world. Graham scrambled down the ladder. Mara, we have got company. Everyone gathered in the yard as Marcus Crawford and his men pulled up. Crawford was a handsome man with cold, empty eyes. He looked down at Mara with a sneer. I hear congratulations are in order, Miss Whitlock. You managed to keep your little ranch. What can I do for you, Mr. Crawford? She asked, her voice calm. You can listen, Crawford said, swinging down from his horse. This ranch is finished. It is only a matter of time. I am giving you one last chance. Sell to me now for a fair price. We are not selling, Mara stated plainly. Then you are a fool. I have already bought 6 other ranches in this valley. You are all alone out here. When I own the water rights, you will come begging me to buy this land. And my offer will not be so kind. The river runs through our land, Elena said, her voice trembling but strong. That gives us rights. For now, Crawford said with a cruel smile, laws can be changed. I will give you 1 month to see how impossible your situation is. He climbed back on his horse and rode away, leaving his threat hanging in the dusty air. He is not going to give up, Lucas said. No, Mara agreed, looking at her small group. He is not. So we had better be ready. As the first snow began to fall that night, they gathered around the kitchen table. They were no longer just 4 strangers. They were allies. They were partners. And they were ready for the war that was just beginning. They were a family. The world was silent, buried under 6 inches of fresh snow. Graham dressed in the dark and stepped outside. The snow had softened all the hard lines of Red Hollow, making the struggling ranch look almost peaceful. But peace was a lie when men like Marcus Crawford were circling. He was clearing a path when Mara came out onto the porch. Winter is here early, she said. Looks that way, Graham replied, leaning on his shovel. Is that a problem? Everything is a problem these days, she said with a tired smile. But we can handle snow. It is Crawford that keeps me up at night. They had all been thinking about his threats, waiting for his next move. Lucas appeared from the barn, a bit of hay in his hair. The animals are fed. Found a weak board in one of the stalls, but patched it up for now. Thank you, Mara said, walking carefully down the steps. Graham, when you are done, Elena needs help moving those heavy supply crates. He nodded, feeling a quiet satisfaction at being part of the ranch's daily life. The 4 of them worked all morning, a silent team against the coming cold. They split wood, checked the livestock, and secured the chicken coop. The work was hard, but honest. Each finished task was a small victory against the harsh season. Around noon, Elena called them inside for a lunch of hot soup. As they ate, grateful for the warmth, she spoke up. I have been thinking about what Crawford said, about us being alone. He was not wrong, Mara admitted. Papa always believed in standing on your own 2 feet. It was a strength in good times, Lucas added. But now it is a weakness. It is easy to push around someone who is all alone. So, we make some friends, Elena said simply. The other ranchers Crawford is squeezing must be just as worried as we are. What if we reached out? They might see us as troublemakers, Mara worried. Or they might see us as allies, Graham countered. Crawford is buying up land all over this valley. Everyone knows they could be next. There is strength in numbers. It is worth a shot, Lucas agreed. The worst they can do is say no. Mara looked at the three of them, a flicker of hope in her eyes. The Hendersons live about 10 miles north. They are good people, and the Yamamotos are to the south. I will ride to the Hendersons tomorrow, Graham offered. I will go with you, Mara said immediately. They know me. They will not think I am wasting their time. Between the two of us, we might just convince them. There was a new determination in the air, a sense that they were finally ready to fight back. It was a cold afternoon when the trouble really started. Lucas found the note tucked into the barn door. No signature, just a few ugly words. Sell now while you can. Accidents happen in winter. Graham knew right away it was from Crawford. Mara's jaw set hard as she crumpled the paper. He said we would come begging in a month, she said. Looks like he is not the patient type. Elena asked what kind of accidents they meant, her voice trembling just a bit. Lucas stared out at the snow. Fires, busted fences, bad water, he said grimly. The kind of thing that is hard to prove. They were being targeted, and they knew they had to decide right then, run or fight. They chose to fight. Graham laid out the plan. We stay watchful, we check everything twice, and we make it clear we are not easy targets. But as they prepared to defend the ranch, Lucas dropped a bombshell over supper. I have to go, he said quietly, not meeting their eyes. I need to go see my father before this gets any worse. Everyone stopped. Lucas explained his father was dying, and he could not have that regret hanging over him. I need to make my peace, he told them, his gaze finally finding Elena's. So when I come back, nothing is pulling me away from here again. He promised to return in 2 or 3 weeks, ready to stand his ground for good. I am coming back to Red Hollow, Lucas said, his voice firm. To all of you, this is where I belong now. The kitchen felt warm, but the promise of the ranch beyond was what he was choosing. Not what he was born into, but what he truly wanted. Elena's eyes were bright, but she held back the tears. When will you go? She asked. Tomorrow at first light, Lucas said. The sooner I leave, the sooner I get back. He looked at Graham. You'll watch out for them. They're family, Graham said simply. Morning arrived too quickly, with a bitter cold that bit at the lungs. After a tense breakfast that no one really ate, Lucas pulled on his coat. At the door, he turned back to look at them. Take care of each other, and watch out for Crawford's men. That's my line, Graham said with a small smile. Lucas clapped him on the shoulder, then did something that surprised them all. He pulled Elena into a quick, tight hug. I'll be back, he whispered. I promise. Then he was gone, leaving tracks in the fresh snow. The ranch already felt too empty. On the 3-hour ride to the Hendersons' place, Mara finally broke the silence. Do you reckon Lucas will come back? He gave his word, Graham answered. Words are easy, Mara said, pulling her scarf tighter, especially when you're choosing one family over another. Graham glanced at her. Your father ever make you choose? No, he was a good man, she said softly. But I saw it with others. Folks tearing themselves apart, trying to please everyone but themselves. Is that why you never married? Graham asked gently. Mara gave a short laugh. Truthfully, no one ever asked. I'm too independent, too willing to work alongside a man instead of behind him. My father said I had a pioneer's soul, just born in the wrong century. That's not a wrong era soul, Peso, Graham said, his voice steady. That's just strength. You fight when any reasonable person would have quit. For a long moment, Mara was quiet. Thank you for staying, she said, her voice soft, for seeing something worth fighting for. I see a ranch worth saving, he said, and a woman worth knowing. Something passed between them then, a quiet understanding between two people shaped by hard choices. The Hendersons' ranch appeared over the next hill, smoke curling from the chimney. Jack Henderson, a weathered man in his 50s with a rifle always near, met them at the door. Mara, he nodded. Heard about your father. My condolences. Thank you, Mr. Henderson. This is Graham Hale. Henderson sized Graham up. Heard you kept your ranch from Marcus Crawford. News travels fast, Mara said. Always does when it involves Crawford, Henderson said, his jaw tightening. Come on in. We need to talk. Inside, Henderson got straight to it. Crawford came to see us 3 weeks ago, made a generous offer, but it felt wrong. Too pushy. When I said no, he started talking about water rights, making threats. Did you take it? Mara asked. No, I told him this land's been in my family for 40 years. It is not for sale. Henderson's face hardened. 2 days later, our north fence was cut. We lost 15 head of cattle. The sheriff couldn't prove a thing, but we all know who did it. He's trying to squeeze you out, Graham said. He is squeezing everyone out, Henderson corrected. The Yamamotos found something in their sheep's grazing that made half the flock sick. The Lewises lost their barn to a fire that started in the middle of the night. He looked directly at Mara. You stopped him from taking your place legally. That makes you a problem for him. So what do? Mara asked. Let him win? We fight back, Sarah Henderson spoke up for the first time, her voice quiet but firm. We band together. We watch each other's backs. If enough of us make a stand, someone has to listen. An alliance, Graham said. Exactly, Henderson leaned forward. We help each other, share labor, share information. If he messes with one of us, he messes with all of us. Even knowing it will make you a bigger target? Mara asked. We are already targets, Sarah said simply. We might as well be targets who fight back. They spent the next hour working out the details. The ride back to Red Hollow felt lighter, full of a new kind of hope. They had a chance now. They were building something Crawford could not easily tear down. A few weeks ago, we were strangers, Graham said as they rode. Now we're partners, Mara replied. In business, at least. We will survive, Graham said with a confidence he did not fully feel. We are too stubborn not to. Back at the ranch, Elena met them at the door, her face pale. There was a letter, she said, holding out a piece of paper. Graham took it and read the 4 words written on it aloud. 1 down, 3 to go. Lucas was barely a day gone when the next note appeared. This one was shorter, crueler. 1 down? Mara read it aloud, her voice tight with anger. They think we are weaker now. That night, Graham took the first watch, his rifle resting across his lap. He thought about the Army discharge papers in his pocket that called him a coward. But he knew the truth. He had chosen mercy over orders back then, and he would make that same choice again every time to protect this ranch. Out in Red Hollow, a person learns to listen to the silence. And for days, the quiet from Marcus Crawford's camp was just too loud. That's what worried Graham most. He had failed as a soldier, but he was fixing to succeed at being a good man, protecting the 2 women who trusted him. One morning, the thunder of hoofbeats broke the peace. A horse galloped into the yard, moving way too fast for a friendly visit. Graham reached for his rifle, but saw it was just the telegraph boy from town. The kid slid his horse to a halt. Telegram for Miss Whitlock, he panted. They said it was urgent. Mara came out, wiping flour on her apron, with Elena close behind. Graham took the message and pressed a coin in the boy's hand. The kid just shook his head, wheeled his horse around, and disappeared, leaving only prints in the melting snow. Mara's hands trembled a little as she opened the paper. Graham watched her face turn pale, then saw a flicker of something he could not name. It's from Lucas, she said, her voice low. His father passed 2 days ago. He said he'll be home by the end of the week. Elena let out a soft cry. Oh, thank the Lord he made it in time. He did, Mara agreed, folding the note. And he said he is coming home, here. She looked right at Graham. He chose us. The relief was so thick you could feel it. For 10 they had been stretched thin, keeping watch and holding their little alliance of neighbors together. They all had wondered if Lucas would truly come back, or if his old life would pull him away for good. We should get things ready, Elena said, already turning toward the house. No fussing, Mara stopped her gently. He'll need things to be normal, to see that the life he chose to come back to is still here, strong as ever. She gave a small smile. That is what I would want. Well, Elena nodded, understanding, and went inside. Graham could soon hear her bustling in the kitchen, baking away her worries. Mara stood in the yard, running her thumb over the telegram. I am glad he got to say goodbye to his father, she said softly. He will not have to live with the regret of not being there. You speak from experience? Graham asked. My mother died when I was 16, Mara said, her voice steady but her eyes far away. I could not stand to watch her waste away, so I avoided her. She passed while I was in town. Papa said she asked for me at the end. Graham did not know what to say. Words felt cheap, so he just stood there beside her, a quiet presence. He will need our patience, Mara said, looking at him. He will need to know we do not judge him. We can do that, can we not? Graham offered a rare smile. Then we will learn together. Seems that is what we have been doing all along. Mara tucked the telegram into her pocket. Come on, that wood is not going to split itself. They worked through the afternoon, falling into an easy rhythm of splitting and stacking. The hard, honest work built a woodpile that would see them through the winter. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in fiery colors, they heard more riders approaching. A lot of them. Graham's hand went to his rifle, but he relaxed when he saw Jack Henderson's gray horse leading the group. Behind him were 6 other men in a wagon loaded down with lumber, tools, and sacks of grain. Heard you folks might need a hand, Henderson called out as he rode up. Mara stared, speechless. Mr. Henderson, we cannot accept all this. This is not charity, Mara, Sarah Henderson called from the wagon. This is neighbors helping neighbors. It is how we all survive out here, together. What followed was a whirlwind of activity. The men swarmed the barn, their hammers ringing in the cold air. They did not just patch the roof, they reinforced the whole structure, making it stronger than it had been in years. That evening, the little house was filled with laughter and conversation as everyone crowded in to share a meal. It felt like a family gathering, a reminder that they were not alone. As folks began to leave, Henderson pulled Graham aside. You should know Crawford has been too quiet lately, he said, his face grim in the lamplight. I think he is planning something big, something that will hit all of us at once to make an example. Graham nodded, the cold returning to his gut. Keep your eyes open, Henderson warned. If you see anything, you send word. We will come running. Graham watched them ride off into the dark. The barn was secure, and their bellies were full, but the fight was far from over. Still, for the first time, he felt like they had a real chance. Because now they were not just 3 people on a ranch. They were part of something bigger. But Crawford's bullying had an effect he never expected. It brought the community together. Their neighbor Henderson and others started showing up, ready to help. Before, we were all isolated, easy targets, Henderson told Graham, clapping him on the shoulder. Now we are a problem he cannot solve so easily. For the first time in a long while, the little ranch felt like a true home, fortified by friendship. They were not just surviving anymore. They were building something real. The wind howled so fiercely that no one even heard Lucas ride in. After 5 long days away, he'd returned in the middle of a blizzard, looking like he'd aged 10 years. He'd made it home in time to say goodbye to his father, a stubborn old man who finally gave his blessing for Lucas to choose his own life here at Red Hollow. But any peace he'd found was shattered just as the storm broke. A scream from Elena ripped through the quiet morning air. She was standing by the fence line, staring down at one of their best breeding cows, its throat cut clean. Crawford's men had been there during the storm, leaving a message written in blood and the distinct print of their hobnail boots in the snow. That's over $1,000 gone, Mara said, her voice shaking with rage. She was pregnant. We were counting on that calf. But Lucas knew it was never about the money. It was a threat, a promise that Crawford could reach them anytime, anywhere. Then we stopped being vulnerable, Mara declared, her eyes hard as steel. Get Henderson and the others. This ends now. The injustice of it, attacking a man who just buried his father, was the final straw. It was time for a call to action. Within hours, 14 determined ranchers crammed into Red Hollow's parlor. They were outnumbered and outmatched by Crawford's money, but they had something he could not buy: grit and community. We need proof, Graham said, cutting through the angry chatter. Solid proof that even a crooked sheriff cannot ignore. We need to catch his men in the act. A heavy silence fell over the room. It was one thing to talk about fighting back, but another to lay a trap for dangerous men. But then a surprising idea took shape. They would use Red Hollow as bait. The plan was simple, but incredibly risky. Graham and Lucas would make a big show of riding to town for supplies, acting like they might stay the night. They left Mara and Elena to tend to the ranch, making the place look like an easy target for cowards. Crawford's men, who were surely watching, would not be able to resist such a perfect opportunity. They would expect to find 2 women, alone and helpless. What they would find instead was the entire alliance, hidden in the shadows, armed and ready. As night fell, A bitter cold settled over the valley. From his hiding spot, Graham watched Elena and Mara move about with lanterns, their courage a quiet flame in the darkness. It was the hardest thing he had ever done, watching them put themselves in harm's way. Just after midnight, four figures emerged from the gloom, splitting up to attack the barn and the house. They moved with a chilling confidence, certain of an easy victory. They never saw it coming. Suddenly, the night exploded with action. Henderson's men appeared from the shadows by the barn, rifles leveled. "Don't even breathe wrong," Henderson's voice cut through the air. At the house, Graham and Lucas stepped into the path of the other two men. For a tense moment, nobody moved. Then, seeing they were surrounded, the thugs dropped their weapons. Mara and Elena emerged, rifles in hand, looking fiercer than any paid goon. The trap had worked perfectly. They had their proof, and they had sent a message of their own. The people of this valley would not be broken. This lesson was clear. When good people stand together, they can stand up to anything. That new unity was tested one night when they caught four of Crawford's men red-handed, about to set a fire. Surrounded by 20 armed ranchers, the thugs quickly lost their nerve. "Who sent you?" Henderson demanded. It did not take long for them to confess everything. Crawford had been paying them to terrorize ranchers, hoping to buy their land for cheap. "But why does he want this valley so badly?" Mara asked. The answer changed evermore. "The railroad," one of the men mumbled. "It is coming through here." Crawford was not just a bully, he was a cheat, trying to steal their future right out from under them. But it was not just the water. As their neighbor Henderson later revealed, Crawford knew something else. The railroad was coming through. Whoever owned the land when it arrived would make a fortune selling access. That was the real prize. Crawford was not just collecting land, he was setting himself up to be the king of the entire region. "Well," Henderson said with a grim smile, "let's see how his big plans look from a jail cell." With Crawford's own hired hands tied up and ready to talk, the whole group of ranchers rode into town. Faced with 20 determined citizens and four men confessing to everything, the sheriff had no choice. By sunrise, Marcus Crawford was under arrest for a laundry list of crimes and his company's funds were frozen solid. The ranchers had won. They returned to Red Hollow, exhausted but victorious. As folks started heading home, Henderson pulled Graham aside. "You did real good work here, son. You all stood together, and that is something no amount of money can buy. You gave us all something to fight for, son, and you showed us how to get it done. This valley ain't gonna forget that." Graham just nodded. "We did what needed doing." Henderson mounted up, then looked back. "That's why it matters. Her daddy would be mighty proud of what she's built here." After they all rode off, the four of them just stood there, watching the sun come up over Red Hollow. The place was coming back to life. It was theirs now, free and clear. Lucas finally broke the silence. "So what's next?" Mara smiled, a real smile this time. "Now we work. We fix what's broken and build what we need. All four of us, together." Elena raised an eyebrow, a teasing light in her eyes. "Well now, is that a proposal?" "It's a fact," Mara said, but she was still smiling. "But I suppose if we're partners in everything else, we might as well make it official." Graham's heart gave a little jump. He looked at Mara, the tough, guarded woman who had shown him what real strength was. "I want a partner," Mara said, looking him straight in the eye. "Someone who'll work beside me, not try to own me. If that comes with a marriage license, then fine, but the partnership, that's what counts." Graham didn't have to think twice. "Yes," he said, "yes to all of it." Lucas had found his way over to Elena and took her hand right out in the open. "What about you?" he asked her softly. "You willing to hitch your wagon to a fella with my kind of family troubles?" Elena grinned wide. "Only if you're willing to marry a woman who ordered strangers from a catalog, 'cause she was fresh out of better ideas." Lucas laughed. "Reckon we're two of a kind then." 3 weeks later, they got married in the barn. Henderson helped put it all together, and the whole valley turned out to see the folks who stood up to Marcus Crawford and won. It was just two couples, promising to build a life surrounded by friends. Graham held Mara's hand, thinking about the long road that brought him here. He'd lost a career, but he'd found a home. He'd found a family, not of blood, but blood, but of choice. Sometimes, the right choice sure looks like failure at first. He realized walking away from who you were supposed to be is the only way to find who you're meant to be. Winter settled over Red Hollow, and the snow felt clean and hopeful, not like a threat. The ranch was solid, the animals were fed, and four strangers were now a family. Life wouldn't be a fairy tale. There would be hard days, lean times, and all the troubles that come with ranching. But they would face it all together with good neighbors at their back and love to hold them steady. Red Hollow hadn't been saved by a desperate gamble. It was saved by people choosing each other, choosing to fight for something better. It was saved by the belief that even broken things can be made whole again if you're willing to put in the work. When spring started to melt the snow, Graham stood at that same fence line from his first day. Mara came and stood with him, fitting right under his arm. They watched the sun rise over the mountains. "Any regrets?" she asked him, her voice low. "About answering that ad?" "Not one," Graham said, and he meant it deep in his bones. "Best choice I ever made. That other one, refusing those orders, that choice saved my soul. But this one? This choice gave me a life worth living." From the house, they could smell Elena's cooking. They could hear Lucas laughing about something, sounding lighter and freer than ever before. The horses nickered in the barn, a peaceful, steady sound. Red Hollow was more than just surviving. It was thriving. It was built by four folks who found each other when they were at their wits' end and decided to stay through sheer grit. They came looking for a lifeline and found a purpose. They found partnership. They found the kind of love that grows slow and strong, with roots deep enough to hold on through any storm. The ranch spread out before them, 2,000 acres of hard work and promise. And standing there, choosing each other every single day, they knew they had built something that would last.